Welcome back to Steeped in Cinema, the podcast where we don't just watch movies, we immerse ourselves in them, one cup of tea at a time. I am Brett Voyna, your host, and I am joined once again by my lovely wife, Megan. Say hello to everybody, Megan.
Hello to everybody.
We are recording this on Valentine's Day. It's a strange topic for Valentine's Day, but we are going to be talking about tonight's film and topic is is it Schoenbrunn? Is that how you say it?
I believe.
Schoenbrunn? Jane Schoenbrunn's I Saw the TV Glow. This is a film that we watched a number of weeks ago, and I wrote a review for it on the Substack account, but it's just one that I feel demanded some conversational attention. Am I right?
Yeah, it's definitely a different movie.
Definitely different. And the weird thing, it's officially, I think, labeled as like a horror thriller. I think it is like its official genre label is horror. It's a very haunting, deeply personal movie to anyone who watches it, whether you like it or not. It's gonna, I think, speak to you on some level. Again, this is not your typical horror film. There's no jump scares or monsters per se. It's about something a little more deeper, the unraveling of identity, the quiet terror of dissociation, and the way that media shapes not only how we see the world, but how we see ourselves. The tea of choice in today's episode is Midnight Blue from the Ohio Tea Company. This is a blend of lavender, lemongrass, and lemon. So there's a lot of lemon happening here, and mango. And this is meant to be a calming tea that doesn't include the usual chamomile. It has a very subtle complexity, which makes it a perfect companion for this film as it's very layered. There's lots of layers happening here. It's supposed to kind of make you feel a little bit, out of it, a little loopy, sort of calm, relax the head, sleepy. So that is sort of the way this movie kind of speaks to us, is it's sort of a little out there.
Yeah, even in the actual filming of it, it's very subdued, I would say. There's a lot of times when you just don't even really know what's going on, but it keeps you kind of engrossed. It's a very odd film, but good.
Just grab our tea here. Let's settle in. And trust me, this one is you guys are gonna, if you haven't seen it, you are definitely going to want to rush to it. Let's just first of all break into what this movie is. I Saw the TV Glow, as Megan mentioned. It's a very rare style of film that it's hard to put into one genre. Yes, it's technically horror, but not the way that most people think of it. As I mentioned, there's no jump scares, no masked killers lurking in shadows. Instead, it's a very deeply rooted psychological horror in almost its purest form. It is deeply unsettling, very atmospheric, and filled with a creeping sense of something that you just can't quite put your fingers on. It like worms its way into your head. And initially, I did not like this. I mean, as we were watching it, like I was just sort of not really enjoying it. And then now, after I've thought about it, it's really just kind of like drawing me in. What do you think there?
I had similar feelings in that there were several moments throughout the movie that I felt like, I'm just not really sure if I want to keep going. But instead of stopping the movie, I just kept watching it. So it was just strange, and at first I wasn't really sure that I was picking up on what it was trying to say, but I feel like the more you get into the movie, the more you start to kind of see its intent. And I feel like, as Brett had mentioned earlier, it probably hits you just on a personal level in whatever way it's going to hit you, and it's not the same for everybody. And I think that's what's kind of cool about the movie, is that whatever you take away from it is what you're going to take away from it, and it may not be the same as somebody else. By the time we got to the end of the movie, it was kind of like, oh, oh yeah, that actually was a really good movie.
Right.
So it's just like an odd experience.
Directed by Jane Schoenbrunn, whose work often explores identity and the impact of media, this film follows a character named Owen, who we see him throughout many stages of his life, but it primarily focuses on, I believe, his teenage years. His world is very small, it's quiet, it's stifling, and his only escape is a television show called The Pink Opaque. It's a late night show, and it kind of becomes like his lifeline. And what starts as an innocent obsession soon unravels into something darker. And what makes this film so haunting is how intimately it captures this feeling of alienation. If you've ever had a movie or a show or a song that felt like it was made specifically just for you, you know, something that made you feel seen in a world where you've often felt invisible. If you've ever had that, then you will definitely connect with I Saw the TV Glow, and it will hit you hard because it is about the comfort that we find in media, but also the deep, aching loneliness that comes when that comfort fades. There's a profound sense of loss in this film, not just the loss of a self, but loss of time, loss of identity, the parts of ourselves that we can't quite hold on to. And of course, there's the layer of gender dysphoria woven throughout the film. Like, as I said, a psychological realization that you don't really belong, not even to yourself. So what makes I Saw the TV Glow so disturbingly effective as a horror film is that it doesn't rely on the usual horror styles. As I mentioned, there's no jump scares, no monsters, no blood-soaked hallways, and serial killers and things like that. The terror here is much quieter. You almost kind of forget you're even watching a horror film. It's much more insidious, psychological. It sort of taps into the feeling of losing yourself. And it really plays a lot on the concepts of dissociation. And dissociation is a concept that's often misunderstood. But I Saw the TV Go captures this with haunting precision. It's a terrifying realization that your life is slipping away from you, that you're not even sure when or how it happened. It's waking up every day feeling like you're watching yourself go through the motions, detached, distant, almost as if you're a character in someone else's story. And the film doesn't just depict this experience, it really immerses you in it.
Yeah, it starts with the main character as a child, and you kind of see, you know, some things that he went through as a kid, and further into, like, you know, young adult adolescence where, you know, his mom was sick and things of that nature, and you kind of get this idea that you know, he's never quite belonged, not only just like in, you know, his own social circle or anything like that, but also just kind of like at home, because there's just always been other things going on that kind of superseded, you know, what he wanted or needed and that kind of thing. So, you know, you just get the sense that this poor kid has just never really found a place, until he does with a friend that he finds, and they sort of bond over this show, this Pink Opaque, and because he finally has a connection to someone, he really takes that show to heart. You know, at first he's kind of confused by it. He doesn't really understand why she loves it so much, you know, what she sees in it, and he's just kind of like, yeah, okay, I guess I'll go on this journey with you. But it's more or less for the, you know, the friendship of it. But then it sort of starts to creep into his own life, and he starts to kind of almost live in the show, like. And there are moments where you actually think maybe he actually in reality is, but then it's like, you know, it's like what's part of his mind and what's part of his reality. It's kind of sort of melding into one. So And then through that is where he's sort of exploring his own gender identity and his own, place in the world, and the expectations of what he's supposed to be versus what he really feels he is, and that kind of thing. So it takes you on a roller coaster.
There's always this thing that comes back, and what I was going to mention here is that character of Mr. Melancholy. And this is one character that I just really could not quite get my head around, although the name of the character, Mr. Melancholy, is obvious. Melancholy, sure, I got you there. But there just seems like there was more to it besides that very obvious surface sort of name. And I really just could not grab what this was supposed to be. What are your thoughts on who Mr. Melancholy is, or what it's supposed to represent? And is there a relation with maybe dissociation or even depression?
No, I think there is just a couple of very brief moments where you do see him. He kind of almost looks like a moon or something, if I recall. Just like this guy, but like his head is like the moon, sort of. It's weird. But and it's only very brief, and so they don't really dwell on it. And I kind of feel like whatever he is representing, and yes, his name is Mr. Melancholy, so
right.
Okay, melancholy, but I also think he's representing
there's
more than that. Like, he's representing kind of all of the all of the emotions, whatever those might be, that pull you down a little bit, alternate realities, I guess, so to speak, to your own life. So whatever that may be, I think he's just kind of representative of whatever that may be for any one individual, is what I kind of take away from it. Is just kind of the sum of all of those types of emotions that eventually sort of bring you down. Because he's kind of like the ultimate, villain, I guess, in the show.
Right, yeah.
That they kind of, the one that the girl, the friend, kind of alludes to, like, never being able to really fight or conquer. So again, whatever emotions that is, whatever collective emotions that is for each individual that brings you to that point, I think is what he represents. There's major themes of depression throughout the movie. Even when he is doing things that he likes, or watching the show that he likes, or whatever, he's not really doing it with any sort of actual pure joy. He's just sort of doing it because it's the thing that he does.
It's his lifeline at that particular time. Like, as a teenager, he's got nothing really. He doesn't find any joy in anything except this show. And I think there's a lot of people who can identify with that for some reason. Growing up, maybe myself, just you might not have a lot of friends, and you find sort of a friend in the characters in the TV show, Full House. Like, you feel that you're part of that family, maybe because your own family maybe sucks. You just so I feel there's a lot of people who can identify with escaping into the show. Because one of the most powerful moments in that movie, if you recall, was when he's older, then he's an adult, and his life is sort of mundane and ha-ha, and he finds the old episodes of the Pinko Peg, and he's watching them again, and I feel like that's like him trying to, maybe if I can just watch this show and it'll save me again. And then he finds that that joy is gone. Like, he realizes it was just a campy television show, and there really wasn't anything special about it. And that, for me, was a really hard-hitting moment, because that can happen a lot, something that meant so much to you when you were a child, that saved you in so many instances, a song, a book, a movie, whatever. And then maybe you revisit it somewhere later in your life and find that it, for whatever reason, just doesn't hold the same spark that it once did. It's I don't know. It was kind of a hard moment. Mr. Melancholy, although not an actual monster, may represent the disruption of peace, so to speak. Because as we're trying to find our comfort zones and our place in the world, there's, as you said, this thing that just kind of keeps showing up and keeps coming back over and over again, and we cannot seem to defeat it, and it cuts in and disrupts our peace, which is much like our midnight blue tea, actually, because as I mentioned, its overall attitude is very calming with the lavender, but that mango cuts right through that peaceful lavender, sort of disrupting your calm, soothing relaxation here with a sharp citrusy blend. So that is why this tea, I believe, was a perfect pairing for our little I Saw the TV glow. All right, kidarinis, we are going to take a little break from the deep, heavy, depressing. It is trivia time now, and since we have a guest, Megan is going to be playing trivia, but you definitely feel free to play along out there. I'm going to be asking Megan 5 questions. I'm going to give her an opportunity to think about her answers, and then we're going to go back and reveal all 5 of them. So let's jump into, we are exploring today, we're talking about I Saw the TV Glow and comparing it with the Midnight Blue tea, which is supposed to have a very psychological effect for a psychological movie. And therefore, we are in the realm of psychological horror films. So, our trivia today is going to be focusing on psychological horror films. Megan, are you ready to play some steeped in cinema trivia on psychological horror films?
Sure, yeah. I don't know how good I'm going to do on this.
Oh, these are going to be simple. We're going to keep it simple, light, and fun. It's Valentine's Day gift to you. Question 1. Which film features a videotape that dooms anyone who watches it? All right. Question number 2. This psychological horror film stars Natalie Portman as a ballerina losing her grip on reality. All right, question number 3. Mulholland Drive is a psychological film known for its dreamlike structure and its eerie Hollywood settings. Who directed Mulholland Drive? ...1999 movie Jacob's Ladder follows a man who is haunted by disturbing visions. Your question is, what event are the disturbing images from? And finally, question number 5. Which anime psychological thriller from 1997 explores the dark side of fame and identity? All right, friend, let's go back and ask Megan and see how she did. Megan, question number 1. Which film features a videotape that dooms anyone who watches it?
Well, that would be The Ring.
Bing, 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 correct. The answer is The Ring. I did so much enjoy that film, by the way. I didn't care for the sequel so much, but The Ring is a solid movie.
For sure.
Number 2, what psychological horror film stars Natalie Portman as a ballerina losing her grip on reality?
Well, that's only one of my very ultimate favorite movies of all time, Black Swan.
Black Swan. Yeah, I think that's a lot of our favorite movies of all time. All right, number 3. Mulholland Drive is a psychological horror film known for its dreamlike structure and eerie Hollywood settings. Who is the director of Mulholland Drive?
I have no clue, honestly.
Not even a guess? Have you ever seen Mulholland Drive?
I'm not entirely sure that I have. Like, I know of it, and maybe I've seen parts of it, but I don't feel like I've seen the whole
It's a very excellent film. You should check it out sometime. Mulholland Drive was directed by David Lynch. All right, next is question number 4. 1999 movie Jacob's Ladder follows a man haunted by disturbing visions. What event are the visions of?
It's been a really long time since I've seen this movie.
I'll give you a hint. It's a historical event.
Yeah, I feel like this is probably wrong, but is it the Vietnam War?
Yes, it is the Vietnam War. Very good. The Vietnam War. It's the Vietnam War. Very good. Yes, the Vietnam War. All right, and finally, question number 5. Which anime psychological thriller from 1997 explores the dark side of fame and identity?
That's another one I'm not sure of.
No guesses?
No, I don't know.
The film was called Perfect Blue. Perfect Blue. Well, there you go, guys. There is our 5 questions about psychological horror films. Hope you had some. Did you have fun playing the trivia game?
Yes, that was very cool.
Did you learn something?
A little bit I did.
All right, friends, let us finish up our discussion today in final segment in Steeped in Cinema, and where we're going to be talking about I Saw the TV Glow and what it says about media and identity. As we've been mentioning throughout this episode, this is a film that talks about dissociation, depression, and a lot of identity topics. It's a film. It's a film about the very intimate relationship between media and identity. For Owen, losing the Pinko Peg wasn't just about losing the show. It was about losing a place that he once felt like himself. And that is a deeply terrifying experience, especially for those who have ever felt alienated from the world. Jane Schoenbrunn taps into this quiet, persistent fear that our identities are more fragile than we would like to admit, and that they are, in fact, built on foundations that can very, very easily crumble.
Yeah, I agree with that. I feel like, maybe a lot of the times when we find those types of things, whatever it might be, a show or a book or whatever it is, it's like almost like you want to live vicariously through those shows because, maybe that reality just seems a whole heck of a lot better than, your own, as sad as that may seem. But, it's an escape, and it's a place that, you can feel comfortable with who you are, or, you can feel part of something without judgment. This particular thing kind of rights whatever wrong in your life, even if it's brief. Sometimes you feel like you can't actually be your own true self in the real world. You have to conform to what you're expected to be. Go get the job and, do the adulting and just be who everyone around you expects you to be, and you kind of sometimes sadly fade into the background. I think a lot of people feel like, and again, we do see that with Owen, where he kind of grapples with some things in his teen life, even with, like I said, with his gender identity and things like that, and then you kind of sort of come to find out as an adult, obviously he didn't sort of follow that through really, so he's not really living his true self. He's gone and gotten the job, he's gotten married, he's had the kids, he has the family, the house, the things that society expects, I guess you would say. And there was even a part where he is talking about all that, about, I have a wife and I have kids and I love them very much. But when he says that, he says it just so sad and so plain.
Yeah, very empty.
Without any emotion to it, just as if it was like, I'm supposed to say that.
Like he's delivering a line.
Exactly. Yeah. Like I'm supposed to say that I love my family now. And it's not to say that he doesn't. It's, and that's not what I'm getting at either. It's not to say that when you go and you do these things in your life that it's meaningless. But, if you are a person who can't be fully who you are and you're just doing what you feel you're expected to do, that's kind of what this movie, I think, is reaching towards. By the end of the movie, because I kept thinking to myself, not sure if I really want to finish this, but I kept watching it.
Yeah.
Because there was definitely moments where it was very, very heavy and very, but very thought-provoking. And so by the end of the movie, it was just kind of like, oh, whoa. I mean, it really made you think about whatever it makes you think about. And that's what I think is interesting.
That's the thing.
Because even between Brett and I, we both had very different thoughts on the movie at the end of the movie. And there were different parts of the movie that spoke to us that maybe didn't speak to the other person.
And in different ways.
Yeah. So I think that's the beauty of the movie, is that it's going to tell you whatever it is it needs to tell you. And so I think that's really interesting.
That's very good point, because that's the thing I was thinking of too. My initial thought was that you had to be a person who was either depressed or maybe going through a gender or an identity issue in order to connect to the film, but you really don't. And there's also something to be said about the film's exploration of the gender dysphoria and the role that media plays in shaping gender identity. You know, for many queer and trans people, finding representation in media is almost life-changing. You know, when you see, if you're a trans or a queer or somebody who doesn't get representation and you see that, it can be very moving for you. Like, finally, someone hears me. And it's often the first time that they see reflections of themselves that they can't find in their immediate surroundings. And so I saw the TV Glow, I think, captures that ache, the yearning for a version of yourself that feels true, as you mentioned, and the crushing weight of realizing that that version might only exist in the flickering images of a TV screen. As we sit with that thought, and with this cup of midnight blue tea, you know, I can't help but think about how much of who we are is shaped by what we watch.
For a movie that I really wasn't even sure I was that interested in, it has actually really spoken to me in some pretty deep and moving ways. So I really do recommend it. I think it's a really good watch.
Pairing this film with Midnight Blue from Ohio Tea Company feels almost poetic. The calming blend of lavender and lemongrass is a brief respite from the chaos, a moment of stillness, much like the rare moments in the film where Owen finds comfort in the world of the Pinko Peg. But even in its calmness, there is a complexity to this tea. The mango, the subtle reminder that even in moments of peace, there is always something stirring beneath the surface, waiting to grasp on. Friends, listeners, if you haven't seen I Saw the TV Glow yet, I genuinely encourage you to seek it out. It is not just a film, it is definitely an experience. If you have seen it, I would love to hear your thoughts on this film. Please leave us a comment here. Did this film resonate with you as much as it did with Megan and I? Did it leave you feeling unsettled, introspective, or maybe even seen? Let's keep this conversation going. Reach out to us here at the podcast or on social media. Drop a comment. I want to hear how this film has impacted you because, trust me, it is one that deserves to be talked about. And of course, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure that you subscribe for more deep dives into the films that make us think, feel, and sometimes lose sleep. Every week, we will explore cinema through new lenses, all while savoring a perfectly paired cup of hot, steaming tea. And until next time, my friends, keep steeping your mind in great cinema. Cheers.